So welcome everybody to our first online version of the Artisan and Handmade Seminar Series that ByHand Consulting creates for the New York Now show. We will be offering the same seminar at the show in February, and we are happy to bring it to all the exhibitors of Artisan Resource and Handmade Global Design before the show in this webinar format. So my name is Karen Gibbs. I'm the co-founder of a small consulting company called ByHand Consulting. Our goal is to help new and emerging artisan businesses be successful in the U.S. market, particularly the U.S. wholesale market. What I want to talk about today is the popularity of artisan products, and really share with you my perspective on why artisan products and handmade products are so popular in the marketplace today, and give you a sense of what is the value that customers see in your brand, your product, and your offer. So, excuse me. So, I have been working in this field for 24 years now, in helping international and US-based global artisan companies market their products in the US market. And in my whole career, I have never seen interest in the US market as strong as it is today. I would say over the past 5 years, we're really at a peak. That interest in handmade products is stronger than ever. And as I look around the marketplace, there's almost no brand that I can identify that hasn't either incorporated handmade products into their merchandising selection on a permanent basis or have done some special promotions with artisan products. And one question I get from a lot of people is do you think this is a fad? Do you think this is a trend that's going to blow over in the marketplace? Or do you think this is something that's really here to stay? And it's my firm belief that this is a trend that's actually very much here to stay. And I think it's proven itself that way now, because we've seen artisan products and handmade products really enjoy this sustained level of popularity for a good number of years now. It is the fastest growing section of the New York Now show. It's one of the top 5 reasons why buyers come to the New York Now show is for handmade products. And as we look across the marketplace, whether they're branded as artisan or handmade products or not, we see an increasing number of artisan products there. So it's my firm belief that this is not just a fad or a quick trend, but this is actually a trend that's rooted in the marketplace and that's here to stay for a while. And the reason why I think that is because as we analyze consumer trends and look at consumer trends, we can see how consumer trends in the marketplace are feeding this interest in artisan products. In other words, this is not just a fad that people are interested in buying handmade products. People are interested in buying products that are authentic, that are experience related, that are transparent, that are impactful. And so artisan products address those larger consumer trends. So what we're going to do in this market is that what we're going to do in this webinar is we are going to analyze those trends, look at those consumer trends, and see how they address interest in the artisan products. One thing about handmade products today, in comparison to certainly 10 years ago, and most definitely 20 plus years ago when I first got into this market, is that we see handmade products virtually in all market positions. So I would say that handmade and artisan products are no longer niche products. They really exist in virtually every category and every market positioning. So by that, I mean, we see artisan products, handmade products, global artisan handmade products in the high-end market and that luxury market. An example of that might be Norles textiles from Tibet. We also see them very well rooted in the mainstream market. So with brands like West Elm and Crate and Barrel and others doing products that are handmade and artisan made. And we even see artisan products existing in the mass market. So we see them at all different levels. I think the mainstream market is still where we see artisan products being the most successful, having the most being the most received and having the most long-term sustained success. We also see artisan products in both the fashion and apparel market, as well as the home and home accessories and home furnishings market, in that more gift and accessory category in each of these markets, but very firmly rooted in both of those. So I think that's one of the things that's driving this interest, is that we see products showing up in all different categories, which is really exciting. And we also know that in the marketplace, marketing is no longer about the stuff you sell, but about the stories you tell. We love this quote. Certainly when I started in this market, we didn't tell the story about how a product was made, who made it, what the impact was. And that's changed, right? Now buyers, consumers, they ask that next question, not just how much it is, but they want that next level of, why is this product unique? Or how is this product making a difference? And so the fact that artisan products just inherently have such rich stories and provenance to them means that artisan products have a higher value in the marketplace because of that story component. That said, as many of us on this call know, there are so many different angles. There are so many different stories that exist in even one single product, one single artisan product. And we can't overwhelm our consumer with all the stories. So part of the challenge of a new artisan brand or an existing artisan brand is to figure out, what story is it that your customer wants to hear about your product? Because if we flood them with too many stories, we're going to lose their attention. But if we tell just the right story in just the right way with just the right vocabulary, we can engage that customer in a sale, right? Because it adds that extra value. So that's really what we want to explore in this, is understanding what is that customer interested in more broadly, not just in artisan products, but how can your handmade product appeal to that customer's interest? So the first trend I want to talk about is this notion of authenticity, right? So really in the marketplace today, we see this authenticity term being used widely. It can be also hard to really gauge what it means to what people, right? But here's a quote that I took out of a recent article. Today's empowered customer is driven to purchase products and services from company they perceive as authentic, that earn their trust and they really reflect their values and their personal aspirations. So this whole notion of honesty and trust is a really important one. There's also a sense of authenticity in the sense of, is it real, right? In this marketplace where we are flooded with products that we could purchase, and products that seem to be, if not are, mass produce and sort of ubiquitous and start to look very homogeneous, and are very, in some cases, very much driven by price and availability and less about uniqueness. What we see is that consumer is craving some product that's real and authentic. So we see this authenticity trend really going between having a product that is real as well as a company that's very honest. So both of those are really important to this sense. So this was an article published, a study published recently in Bonfire Marketing, which I like reading some of their reports and articles. This says that 91% of customers value honesty in the companies from which they buy. So being transparent helps really retain your customers and improve on your ROI. So I thought this was interesting too in this study, that honesty came above product utility and brand appeal and brand popularity in terms of what customers were interested in and why they were interested in purchasing from one particular brand. So that was an interesting perspective for me to gain of just how important this is in the marketplace today. Another study that I enjoy following is one of the Boston Consulting Group's survey, and this found that actually authenticity means different things to different age groups. Right, the baby boomers tend to trust brands with sort of this long history and heritage. So really, more traditional brands, ones that have a long track record. And millennials, however, are more drawn to brands that have a sense of personality or supporting a worthy cause. They're really interested in this impact component of authenticity. So, and I think we can see how artisan products and artisan companies out there can appeal to both of those. And I'm going to talk quite a bit about millennials in this, and I'm spending far more time looking at some of the research around millennials and how they're living and spending their money. There's a variety of statistics out there, but one of them says that by 2020, which is, goodness, just right around the corner, somewhere between 55 to 75% of the workforce in the United States will be millennials. So they are a major influence in terms of how they want to spend their time and how they want to spend their money, and are going to influence other sections of the consumer marketplace. So really understanding what it is that drives them is something that I think really points towards our future consumer trends. So an example of a company that I really admire and I think has very much captured this the essence of authenticity in their branding of their product is a company called Citizenry. And what they really emphasize is the provenance of the product. So where that product comes from, and giving a sense of who made it, where it comes from, and the traditions and the techniques behind it, and at a very elevated position in the marketplace. So I think they've created a great sense of authenticity and realness of their product through how they've positioned themselves, both in terms of the transparency of who makes it, but also giving that sense of the techniques behind it and the where it's made, the materials, and a real sense of the craftsmanship of their products. So elevating that craftsmanship and telling the story. So this is really branding that is capitalizing on the techniques and the tradition and the history of the product. Of course, there are designs as well, but what they're really emphasizing is how important these products are to the region and the provenance. So they spend quite a bit of time describing the place that these products are from, the traditions behind it, and as well as how they're made. So this is another aspect of one of the great assets of artisan products, is just the rich story of how a product is made. And I see more and more brands emphasizing this aspect of artisan products. And I see more and more brands doing this through videos of describing the technique of the product and how it's made, that helps both elevate the product and help the consumer understand how valuable and how unique this product is, but also how authentic it is. So this is not a product that is an imitation. This is a product that is the real deal. And using those images and that content to help establish such an authentic product in their marketing. So more and more videos, if what you are seeking to do is really establish the authenticity of this product, your use of video in marketing your product is strongly recommended. Another brand that I think has done a marvelous job of establishing a real sense of provenance and authentic origin of the products is Sidai Designs, who's developed some very contemporary pieces, jewelry that's made by the Maasai women, in Tanzania. And yet, in all of their marketing, while their pieces are very contemporary, that they make available to customers here in the US, they, in all of their marketing materials, are very much referring back to the traditional pieces that were in the motivation and the inspiration behind their designs, and also that is the impact of their product. So through their marketing, we see here as well their Instagram account, which how they're establishing their designs, both as contemporary pieces, but also very much rooted in that place. So here, I think, is an interesting example. I've heard more and more about using Instagram in your marketing, that when you are designing your Instagram account, you also want to take into account this tiling. Right. So as people are going to your Instagram account and capturing an image of your company, that they're looking at anywhere from 6 to 9 posts at a time. And so designing your Instagram account so that it really reflects that full story behind your product. So you'll see here, Sidai Designs is so focused on both showing the product in its contemporary design in a contemporary setting, but also side by side with that image of where the product comes from and who makes it. So this whole sense of authenticity is a real strong point in why customers are interested in artisan products. The second trend I want to touch upon is impact. And, for many, this might seem to be redundant, because we know it's what motivates certainly so many of us who have gotten involved in working with artisans to develop new and innovative products to bring to market. But it is truly, and I think for many, many years, I certainly always hoped that consumers cared about this impact. I think sometimes they did and sometimes they didn't. And certainly for many, many years, we marketed products purely on being well-designed, good quality, at the right price and available in the right place. Increasingly, though, the story matters, right? Increasingly, people want not just a well-designed product that's good quality at the right price and available in the right place, but they also want a product that makes a difference in the world. And this is some statistics from a recent report by Cone Communications that said 89% of Americans would switch brands to one that is associated with a good cause, given similar price and product, similar price and quality. And that 79% of Americans continue to seek out products that are socially or environmentally responsible whenever possible. So this definitely shows that it's not just what we all in this artisan community care about, but increasingly it's what customers care about. So now what they care about in terms of that impact, right, is another thing. But really both the social and environmental issues seem to be equally placed. There was also an interesting section in this report around key millennial values for shaping the future of the American economy. So I thought it was another interesting just exploration of this whole notion of impact. And one of the things that I thought was interesting in the research was that in terms of impact, it was not just how millennials were spending their money in purchases, but it was also how they were spending their time. And we'll talk a little bit about this when we talk about experiences later. But so it's not just how they are consuming products, but it's also how they choose to work, where they choose to work, where they choose to live, how they choose to live. That's very much impact driven. So when we think about impact, right, and what could that impact mean, what kind of impact are people wanting to see? It is a wide variety. And artisan products can appeal to a wide variety of impact too. So I always advise people to be very specific in the impact that they are seeking to achieve in their product, to not spread yourself too thin, but still at the same time appeal to a wide audience. So one example of the diversity of impact that you can see in terms of what consumers want is to look at the West Elm catalog and look at their social impact values and goals. So they really have anchored theirs around 4 different tenets of impact. One is around fair trade. The second is around handcrafted. And for handcrafted, they really anchor that in preserving craft techniques and traditions and bringing income to marginalized communities. The third tenet is around organic, and the fourth tenet is around sustainably sourced or green products, right? Working with the Forest Stewardship Council and really paying close attention to the environmental impact of the materials that they're working. So that's just one example. I'll show you a couple other examples in terms of impact later, but ways that I see we can define the impact of artisan products is definitely around providing income and opportunities for women. It's about preserving traditional craft techniques, which definitely lends into that whole desire for an authentic product. It's about income generation in economically marginalized communities and as well in rural areas. So those are the 3 where I see people really anchoring their impact data and positioning. So we hear this over and over again, that purpose has become the 5th P of marketing. And so what we find is that the brands that have a very clear mission statement that they repeat again in all their social media outlets, as well as on their website, and a refined version in their marketing materials, that is increasingly important in the marketplace today, and increasingly important as consumers are really asking more and more questions and doing their research behind products. So having a mission statement that's very much tied to your impact is really highly recommended for companies. Another thing we see is a growing number of annual impact reports. And I think these are great to read for to understand too what other brands are measuring out there, how they're positioning their impact. Also to look at some of the other research that they are tapping into to position their own impact and impact measurements. So Nest's impact report came out recently for 2017. I think it's rich with information. Other ones that I like reading are the ones from Indigo Africa, from Mercado Global. I think they have comprehensive impact reports. It's not to say that you, as a new company in particular, or as a small company, need to do this kind of impact reporting in terms of certainly having a separate PDF. But these are, choose a couple of brands that you really like, how they measure and communicate their impact, and follow them and see if there's ways that you can emulate some of their impact reporting. And end of the year email, we saw lots of those come out more than ever this last year, of companies summarizing what their impact was in terms of number of communities, number of artisans, capacity building that they had done. I also see people throughout the year, brands doing different kind of impact highlights. So highlighting a particular product and underscoring the number of communities that were involved in producing that product, the number of people that were involved, some sense of translating what that product brings in terms of impact. I believe I saw Mercado Global do a great campaign earlier this year around a particular bag that they had, and correlating the income from that bag with sending a child to school for a month or some correlation like that. So we see more and more of this translation of impact being used, not just in the end of the year summary, but in campaigns throughout the year. There's another brand that I think has come up with a really compelling impact. I think we're going to see this more and more as the market evolves. But Cuyana is a San Francisco-based ethical fashion company, very refined, very sophisticated clothing, but their whole campaign is around fewer, better products. So really that whole notion of less is more, and how they've built their brand around that. So kind of a little unconventional in terms of other artisan brands, but a great example of having a very clear impact message and carrying it through in all of their marketing. I think fewer, better definitely leans into artisan products, particularly products that are positioning themselves in a more elevated part of the marketplace, where with a higher price product, a higher quality product, really that sense of an authentic, elevated product, this whole notion of fewer, better, and consuming less, right? Less is more, is an interesting impact statement to make. Here again is a little more about how they're doing that. Proud Mary Global Textiles, a company we admire greatly, and has really, I think, been at the front of artisan products in the ethical fashion sphere. So we can watch how they have described the impact that they make through job creation and the women that are making the products. So both borrowing from those techniques, but also job creation. And Indigo Africa, I think, has been really at the forefront of positioning itself as a strong artisan and impact oriented brand. I think it's been one of the key reasons why they've been so successful with some of their partnerships with other brands in the marketplace, is because they bring these impact statements and this level of transparency to their sourcing. And have partnered that. So they have been able to partner with other brands because what they offer is not just a beautiful product, but they also offer this very detailed impact measurements and definitions that are well documented. And so for other brands, what they are offering is not just that product, but also the ability to stand behind impact statements that are very well verified and documented. So here's some more of the marketing images from Indigo Africa. Okay, so those are the first two trends, right? Authenticity and impact. Obviously, we see lots of overlap between these, right? It's not like you are going to anchor yourself on one of these trends and that's going to be the defining trend for helping you to further refine and define your brand. There's lots of overlap in these, but hopefully they help you to really decipher and to define what is your brand positioning in the marketplace. So the third trend that I have heard repeated over and over again this holiday season, I think even NPR was talking about it, so it's gone very mainstream in our market, is this notion of experiences. So experiences, meaning people are opting to spend money on experiences over products. So Forbes had a great quote, right? Their consumer purchasing habits are starting to reflect what clinical research shows, and that is experiences give you more happiness than material objects. We also know that 72% of millennials prefer to spend money on experiences rather than material things. So I think it's both of those driving together that seems to have really influenced this trend. So by experiences spending money on experiences over products, what we see is that people are spending more money on dining, more money on entertaining than ever before. And those are some of the big growth areas, more money on travel. So the travel industry is doing very well, whereas we see traditional retail, a lot of the established traditional retailers in the US market over the last 2 years in particular are really struggling. So some of those national chains, particularly department stores, are having a harder time sustaining growth, whereas companies offering unique experiences are definitely thriving. I even noticed recently on Airbnb, when you go in order to find a house to stay at, I'm sure other online housing companies are doing this too, that they offer you, the ability to search for a place to stay, which is travel and experience related, but they also are offering experiences, so cooking classes and tours and activities that you can do in those areas that you're visiting. So how does this all relate, right, to global artisan products? It very much relates to it because all of these products come from interesting places that they can go visit. So I see an increasing number of companies, so people, smaller companies doing these collaborative promotional activities. So here's one with Me Solo Shoes, Huckberry's 80, Yellow Leaf Hammocks, and others that did this campaign. So they send out this email to their email list that says, enter to a prize to win a trip. And they do this as a campaign to grow their customer base, their customer list, and then they share all the customer lists between all the participating brands. In speaking with Yellow Leaf Hammocks recently, they said this was extremely successful. It drastically grew their customer list. But really, what's interesting about this is that it's an experience, right? It's a trip that's really incentivized people to follow these brands and to be more interested in the product and where it comes from. So we see, just the notion of artisan brands offering a sense of where the product comes from definitely appeals to this desire for people to travel more. West Elm, a brand we all know, right, offers home furnishings, has a very robust artisan program in terms of working with artisan businesses. It's very much, that handmade component is very much part of their brand. What we see is that West Elm has actually entered into partnership to open a chain of hotels. So they have recognized that people are traveling more, and so they are getting into the hotel business. So I think that they have 5 or 6 hotels now. They're definitely opening up in what I would call kind of more emerging secondary markets. And I think they're opening up one in Nashville now, in Savannah, Georgia. I'm not sure of all the locations, but definitely kind of up and coming towns. And of course, the products that are in these hotels are available through West Elm stores, or some of them are. So it's a big component to help them develop their customer base too. But I thought that was really interesting as a reflection on this experiences. Anthropologie, I think a brand that is globally admired for their bohemian global aesthetic. They have opened in many of their stores cafes, right, to engage the customer. So let's engage them with a dining experience to keep them close to or in the stores longer, really also to convey the whole Anthropologie brand, buy them into this lifestyle, and use that as a way to retain their customers and convey their brand. So how can this all relate to artisan products? We see Noonday Collection. This is a company that we work very closely with. Noonday Collection is a direct sales company. So they are selling through home parties in people's homes, rapidly growing, having great impact with its artisan business partners around the world. But one of the key motivations for these ambassadors to get involved in selling Noonday products is because of the impact that the products are making around the world. And one of their big incentives that they use for their ambassadors to sell more is the opportunity to travel. The opportunity to travel to visit Noonday's artisan business partners and see the world. And it's a big motivation for them. So again, it's showing the rich opportunity that Artisan Products lends to these travel opportunities and ways that you can think about incorporating it into your brand. Here's some of the older products from Noonday, a little more about that connection between artisans here and artisans around the world. Also, I think one of the successes of the Noonday brand and others, right, other direct sales companies that we see coming into this artisan space, which there are quite a few of them that are coming in with very rapid sales growth and success, is this whole notion, right? This direct sales business model, and particularly ones that are trunk show based, right, or party based, event based direct sales companies. It's gathering people. So these are experiences that these companies are offering. This is not just an experience of selling your products online, right? Or a customer purchasing a product, sitting in front of their computer at home in their pajamas, but this is about gathering people, creating community. And I think it's something that increasingly we all as individuals care about. And more we're seeing it reflected through consumer purchasing habits is the desire to gather together and be together and create community. I just finished Sebastian Junger's book Tribe, which was just a fascinating tale, but just this underlying importance that we need to gather together and be together and create a community and create a tribe in order to succeed as a culture and a country and as a business. And so Artisan Products, I think, lend themselves very well to this gathering because it's got such rich content and rich meaning that we can find common interest in. So we see a growing number of retail stores offering experiences in their stores, demonstrations, small classes, presentations, trunk shows. All of those things are activities that Artisan Products has so much rich content and meaning for that we can feed into this trend, right? So thinking about not just selling a product, but what are some of the experiences that you could offer as a company to your retail partners and to your consumers to engage in experience, learn how a product is made, learn a new technique, have a hands-on demonstration, have a hands-on class, bring in a master craftsman to speak, and offer that as part of your offer. So the fourth trend I want to talk about is transparency. Certainly, it's hard to believe it was almost 5 years ago now, but the horrible, devastating disasters at the Rana Plaza and factories in Bangladesh, apparel factories, definitely turned the fashion industry and the apparel industry on its head in terms of being accountable for the working conditions where products are coming from. And we've seen this reverberate throughout the marketplace. So consumers asking more questions about where these brands are working, what are the working conditions of the people who are making the products that they're purchasing, and these brands paying more attention to really making sure they know, right, where everything is being made and that they are working in safe and healthy work conditions. So these are principles that have been so at the core of the fair trade movement. And we are seeing them echo out through other parts of the marketplace. So really ensuring the rights and the health and safety of the people that are making the products. We see certainly Everlane is a brand that I've long admired in terms of providing a level of transparency about where a product is made, all the costs involved in making the product. We see also a growing number of very established and high-profile fashion brands that, as part of their interest in providing a greater level of transparency, have also partnered with Artisan brands to go above and beyond not just the factories that they're working with, but also to support new workshop-based production that's having a higher level of impact. And then we see two things. There's two trends. We see certainly within the World Fair Trade Organization, their guarantee system. I think some growing interest in this program. So really their goal is to be able to certify a product to guarantee that it was actually made following all the principles of fair trade. So they have put a huge investment into this certification program. But even then in the mainstream market, what we see is Nest has a supply chain certification program that they have just introduced. I think they launched it last month at the United Nations. And this is really recognizing that a number of products that are made in cottage industry settings, so that are not made in factory settings, and how do we create a certification process that is inclusive of cottage industry production, that we can still guarantee that all these products are made in safe and healthy work environments, and that people are being paid a fair wage and have the opportunity for growth and improvement of livelihoods, while also maintaining that cottage industry production. So allowing people to work at home and work more in what we call this informal sector. So this is a trend, a program and an initiative that has attracted the participations of some very established brands in the marketplace. Not to say that all of these companies are bringing artisan/handmade products to market, but many of them are offering products that are made predominantly by hand. So these are hand worked products. They've branded this new term of a hand worker. So I think just this level of transparency is driving more and more interest and inclusion of handmade products, products made entirely or partially by hand. And there is no question that it's going to elevate the importance of handmade products, particularly as these larger brands are participating in this. So really, artisan and handmade products in the marketplace are all of these, right? They are authentic and really appealing to consumers' desire to have a product that's honest and transparent, and that's very real in terms of its technique and its impact. Products that are experience related, that give us a sense of where they came from and an opportunity maybe even to visit that or touch that story, an opportunity in some way, that they're impactful for women, for the environment, for fair trade practices, and for income generation, supporting socially and economically marginalized community. And they are inherently transparent, right? There is the stories and the level of stories that artisan products provide offer a level of transparency that customers are asking for in other parts of the market. So I think for all of these reasons, we see artisan and handmade products being not only of interest to consumers from an aesthetic point of view, but also of interest to consumers because of all of these elements. So I think it's a very exciting moment, an exciting time for artisan products and handmade products in the marketplace, and a time that only offers us more opportunity in the future. So at this point, I'm going to conclude the recording of this webinar. I will stop recording and I'll take questions from anybody who's interested.